By the time you watch this video, I'll have had my Whill C2 power chair for about 18 months. It's safe to say that this chair has been a game changer for me, and it's something that I'm often asked about. So this video is an update on how I'm getting on and answering questions that you sent through on Instagram. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I really don't like how this video's turned out. I was a bit more fatigued than I realised when I was filming, and I did debate not uploading it at all, but I really hope there's still plenty of helpful stuff in here if you're considering whether this chair is right for you. If we haven't met before, my name is Pippa. I'm a disabled writer and content creator. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, so I have a little bit of ability to stand and walk for short periods of time. But I've used a power chair since 2018, and the chair I had back then first was the Eden Comet from Eden Mobility. In 2024, I moved to the Whill C2. I'll also say there are two other videos on my channel that might be helpful to watch before you watch this one. The first one is called something like How I Chose My New Power Chair, and that's the one that really goes into depth about the different options I considered, what I was looking for, what I ruled out, how I went about applying for funding. All the intricacies like that are covered in that video. And then a few months later, after I'd got the chair, I also have a power chair tour on this YouTube channel. Both of those videos will be linked below, and both of those videos answer the questions that I'm asked the most. This video is also divided into timestamps, so you can find the bit that you're looking for, and if you are new here, I would absolutely love it if you subscribed. All of these questions came from Instagram, and the ones I'm going to run through first relate to the chair itself and the accessories, so I went out and filmed some clips. Okay, before you see these clips that I've filmed, in my head I envisioned this being like a really helpful walkthrough of the wheelchair and just showing you bits as I talk about them, and there is another video on my channel where I've done that, but this one on this occasion didn't turn out to be as helpful as I thought it would be. I had my mum with me, I had Ruby the dog with me, there was a lot going on, a lot of different access needs at play, and the background noise is also a bit of a problem as well. So I've done the best that I can, but just to say, if it is a problem, there are closed captions throughout this video, so if you need to mute the audio, you can still get the information that way. And I'm going to be popping in and out and re-recording the bits that I think are just not usable. So I'm doing the best I can with what I have, but I hope this next bit is helpful anyway.
So these are the questions you sent in. The first question is, what width is the seat you have, and how have you found it navigating spaces, for example, inside shops, through doorways, lifts, etc.? So this is the 16-inch seat. I believe the sizes are 16, 18 and 21, so this is the smallest one. And it is a little bit wider than what I was used to before, so there has been a couple of issues around that, but not as bad as I expected. The next question is, how heavy is the battery? And I think double check this on the website to make sure, but I believe it's 2.7 kilograms. And that for me was one of the biggest benefits of this chair. Like you've probably heard me talk about before, the battery on my previous chair was so heavy, really difficult to pick up even for a non-disabled person.
I'm at the wrong angle to show you properly, but yeah, all you do is you just press that button in and then you just lift it out, and it's quite ergonomic as well. So yeah, really good in that regard.
So the back is obvious. Hello, you're looking at the camera.
Re-recording these next couple of questions because of the background noise, but the next one was, I tried one out and found it incredibly jerky while moving. Have you had this? A little bit. I can understand where this person is coming from. It's quite sensitive when you control it, so there is a little bit of a jerking motion when you either set off or you stop. There's clips of that in my other video as well. There's almost like a little shrug. There. I mean, if you can ignore the hair and what the wind is doing to my hair, there's like a tiny little shrug. And then sometimes when you're turning or changing direction, there is a little bit of a shrug there as well. I think for some people it won't be that noticeable at all, but of course when you have a chronic illness, you do have to be really mindful of even the little sensory experiences like that. So my best advice is, when you do try it out, if you do try it out, just really take the time to do all of the maneuvers that you'll be doing and just really see how that sits with you. This question is there anything you don't like about it or wish it had? My answer is yes, and I'm going to answer the next question at the same time, because this person said, do they come with a higher back? Does it being low ever pose a problem? So I do sometimes have issues with it being a lower back. That was something I picked up on right from the beginning. And again, the benefits of the chair outweighed the costs of that. For the most part, that's not a massive issue for me. The only time when it bothers me is when I'm in the chair for long periods of time, or the one where it really bothers me is when I'm on a moving train and there isn't the option to transfer to a seat. There's something about being on a moving train and having that lower back that really doesn't agree with me. I have found out since getting the chair that there there are options to swap the lower back for a higher back. There are different models that fit onto it, and I'm definitely not an expert on this, so it's probably something to look into yourself. But while preparing this video, I did look, and TGA are now doing the Whill C2. They're doing an option where you can purchase a chair that has like a proper like thoracic ergonomic back on it, so like one with like the proper head and neck support. For me, the main reason I haven't really pursued that is one, cost, and two, I think having a higher back would impact the portability of the chair. So while on the one hand, most of the travelling and the working I do is independently, so on public transport, the higher back would definitely be a benefit for me. But when I do need to get the chair into the car, which is also another thing I'm going to touch on later in this video, I think having the higher back would make that a little bit more difficult as well. But I thought I'd mention that because at the time I was purchasing mine, I didn't know that there were options for that. And if the lower back is something that concerns you, it's definitely worth looking into what other options might be available, and just knowing that there are options available.
So while I'm down here, I'll also talk about accessories. So somebody said, could you share what bag you have? I've had a really good experience with this bag that fits on the back. It's called the Splash Scooter bag, I think. And it basically just lifts on and off the chair. It zips and unzips like this. It's almost like having a boot on a car. It just comes in handy so much of the time, so that's really good. So if you watched my previous video, you might have seen that I had a slightly different pannier bag.
Refilming this bit as well because the noise was a bit of an issue here. So in terms of the pannier bags, the one I had before was like just one like this, and it's quite soft, and it attaches by Velcro, and it just slips over like the arm of the wheelchair. This was fine for a time, but I really didn't get on with the Velcro on this. I even added more Velcro to try and make it a bit more secure, but it just never felt as secure as I would like it to, especially because I'm a chronic overpacker, so I'm always trying to get more stuff in these things. So the one I have now is called the Pop and Pannier bag, and it's from Careco. It's a similar-ish sort of size, but there's a lot more structure to it. And crucially, it fastens by zips rather than Velcro. So you've got one section at the front and then a main section at the back. And then there's like an adjustable shoulder strap, which this comes in really useful as well. So I'm getting on well with this so far. I definitely would recommend one of these over one of those. The only thing I don't like about this one is, well, one, it adds a little bit of extra width to the chair, which is not a massive issue, but sometimes when I'm on the bus or on public transport, I do have to be a bit more mindful of that. And also, I wish it didn't have this Careco logo here because, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Careco as a brand, but I don't really like, it just feels a bit medicalised to me, this. So I need to look at like what I can do to sort of cover that up or jazz this up a bit. On my other one, I had some pin badges and I really liked that, but they just wouldn't sit right on this. So if anybody has any ideas in that regard, I would genuinely really love to hear them.
Oh, she's off. What's happening? Where are you going? I'm nearly done. Right, are you coming up or are you staying down? Because either's fine, but you have to make your mind up. So this person said, have you added or removed any accessories since you first got it? And again, if you go back to my previous video, you'll see all of the accessories that I got when I first got this chair. Some of them intentionally, some of them by accident. The drinks holder is no longer on, and that is not something that happened voluntarily. It just kept falling off. So I need to figure out how to do that, and I would really like to get that fixed back on, but every time that I've tried to do it, it's fallen off again. So, and the drinks holder came in really handy as well, so I should probably look at doing something about that. One of the questions was, do things ever fall out of the basket? I love the chair, but worry my stuff will just be falling out without me noticing as I'm whizzing along. The basket is great. As you can see here, I make full use of it wherever I can. I honestly don't know how I end up carrying so much stuff, but I do. So it does fit a lot of stuff in, but I do understand the worry in this question, because the next question was, does the basket front mesh Velcro keep undoing, and have you found a fix? So one thing I will say for this basket, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, is that it fastens by Velcro. There's two little fastenings on either side, and these do come undone quite a lot, and they are quite fiddly, especially if you have issues with your hands. You might need some assistance with that. And again, I've never really thought to look for a solution to that. I suppose you could put like a stitch in it if you were that way inclined. I mean, I'm not a crafty person in the slightest. Now that I'm answering this question, I'm thinking that probably is worth doing as well, actually, because it does sometimes come undone. I've never really had an issue with things falling out of it, but I can understand that worry. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on it. And me being the biggest hypocrite ever, I'm going to say maybe don't overstuff it if you can help it. she says while crouched down with a bag full of stuff for me and the dog.
Back with me now, and these questions are all about setting up an instalments. And the first one is, did you go to a showroom to see them? I didn't go to a showroom, so TGA, who provides the Whill C2 in the UK, they came to me. So I arranged a demo day, and in short, I did that through a company called Access Your Life. If I haven't already mentioned them in this video, I will have mentioned them in other videos, but they're essentially a really great organisation that helps people to find the right mobility aids for them and helps them to access them. So once I identified that I wanted to try the Whill C2, I communicated that to them, and they were the ones who then arranged the demo day with TGA. So TGA came to my house, they gave me a good look at the chair. I obviously had the opportunity to try it out and ask any questions. After that day, when I'd given it all the due thought that I needed to and decided that the Whill C2 was the chair for me, I arranged a delivery day. Again, they came to me, they brought the chair with them. They spent time getting it set up, and they also put on all of the accessories that I've already touched on. They fitted all of those for me, so I didn't have to worry about doing that myself. Any breakdowns or issues, any maintenance needed? No breakdowns at all, I'm very happy to report. No issues, I've not needed to call anybody for maintenance, I've not had to have anything fixed. So like I say, it's been about 18 months now, and I've genuinely had a really smooth ride with mine. In fact, I haven't had to call TGA for anything, but about a year after I got the chair, TGA called me just as a courtesy call to check everything was all right and if there were any issues. And again, that's very different from my experience with other wheelchair companies in the past. So I thought, I was really impressed by that, to be honest. I thought that was great. I'm trying to record these answers in little sections because I don't know what is going on in my building today. There is all sorts going on, and I'm trying to keep the noise to a minimum for anybody who's watching this. So if my thoughts were a little bit scrambled, that is why. Now let's talk about funding, and obviously every power chair is going to come with a pretty hefty price tag, although the amount of variability there is between the cheapest power chairs and the most expensive power chairs is absolutely wild. Somebody asked how much was the chair, and recording this video in the UK in 2025, the cost of the Whill C2 is £4,995. And while that is a lot of money, in comparison to what some of my other friends have had to pay for their custom power chairs, this is actually at the lower end, believe it or not. But it obviously goes without saying that for a lot of people, that's not something that you can fund out of pocket. And in my previous video, the one about how I chose my new power chair, I go into a lot more depth about funding and the different options I looked at and what I rolled out, and ultimately how I managed to get some funding towards this chair through Access to Work, because this chair enables me to do my job. Do you know anyone who's done a GoFundMe for one? Yes, I know a lot of friends who have done GoFundMe fundraising campaigns to raise money for their power chairs or other mobility equipment. I think my best advice to anybody who knows that they need a power chair and they're struggling to afford it, I think it's best to explore all possible avenues of funding first before you commit to doing the GoFundMe. And again, I will say the organisation Access Your Life can be really good in this area. They often know where the money is and where local and regional grants are and the stuff you might be applicable for. So it's well worth thoroughly researching your options first, but if you do need to do a GoFundMe, you do you, absolutely. It didn't feel like the right option for me, again for reasons that I went into more depth about in the other video, but I fully support other people doing what they need to do to get the mobility aids that they need in order to thrive. If Access to Work hadn't funded it for you, would it have been viable to get? It would for me, yes, but it probably would have taken longer. I probably would have needed to save up for a few more years. I am very lucky because I am able to work and to earn an income, which is one of the reasons why I feel like there are certain privileges that come with that, and that's again one of the reasons why GoFundMe wasn't something that I felt like I should be doing. I do consider myself very lucky, and I do think it would have been completely viable to do this on my own if I'd needed to. However, the issue was that my current power chair was so broken and so unsafe to use, and because of the nature of my job, I was having to turn down work and turn down opportunities because I didn't have a suitable power chair. So I knew that I needed to get one more quickly than I would have been able to get one if I was doing it totally on my own. Again, I knew that there was always going to be a chance that I would have to do it totally on my own because I thought my chances of getting any funding at all was so slim, but luckily, I say luckily, it's not a joy to navigate the system, but luckily I did manage to get a good proportion of it funded through Access to Work. and I managed to communicate the urgency of the situation to them as well. Funding can be a very tricky topic to talk about, especially in the disability community and especially in the current climate, but if you do know that you need a power chair, like, please don't feel any guilt for doing whatever you need to do in order to fund it. Like, there is no shame in asking for help or reaching out or just inquiring about what might be possible. Like, please don't let the fear of how you're being perceived hold you back from doing that. The next questions are about life and travel, and the first one is, what is your experience of taking it abroad? My experience of taking it abroad is limited because I still have a fear of flying with my power chair. I'm just so scared of something happening to it during transit that it stopped me from flying with it at all. So when I have been able to go on holiday, what I've been doing is renting a power chair on the other side and then relying on airport assistance, which means that I don't have to take my own wheelchair if I'm travelling to another country. If you are interested about how I navigate that while abroad, there are videos on this YouTube channel about like holidays and overseas travel. Earlier this year, I flew for the first time with my own transit wheelchair. Again, I rented a power chair on the other side, but I travelled with my own transit because I was travelling solo. Goes without saying, lots of learning curves with all of these experiences. And one day I really hope I will be brave enough to, in fact, no, I take that back. One day I hope that I won't have to be brave in order to fly with my own power chair, because it's the system that's at fault and people aren't penalised when they're damaging other people's mobility aids. So I'm trying to remember that it's not necessarily a me problem, but I know that at some point I probably am going to have to work up the courage to fly with it. I have, however, had really good experiences of travelling with this power chair around the UK and also on the Eurostar. So I've gone abroad a couple of times via the Eurostar and I've generally had a really positive experience of travelling with the Whill C2 that way. My only complaint with the Eurostar travel, and again I've documented this in vlogs, is because you have to stay in your power chair on the Eurostar. You can't transfer to a seat if you're booking a wheelchair space, you have to stay in. That's another area where the low back on the Whill C2 is a bit of an issue for me, because it's generally not as comfortable when you're on a moving train or you're sat there for longer periods. If that was a major issue, that could be resolved by looking into the higher backrest. And the more I sit and talk about this, the more I'm thinking, do I actually seriously need to be looking into this? Can it handle off-road? So this chair handles off-road a lot better than other wheelchairs I've tried in the past. It's definitely not an off-road wheelchair. It won't compare to a tramper or a proper off-roader or anything like that. But I definitely feel safe and secure in it, even while I'm on slightly uneven terrain. I can go on grass and I can veer off pavements and that's no problem at all. The only terrain that I do find difficult in this chair, and I think it's because of the wheels, is tiny bits of gravel or tiny pebbles, stuff like that, or if there are deep indents in the pavement or cobbles that are uneven. Those are things that can pose a bit of a challenge because the wheels can kind of get stuck in them, so you have to be quite mindful at taking things at the right angle. How does it compare with your previous wheelchair? I can't even tell you how much better this chair is compared with my previous wheelchair. I just feel so much safer in it. I feel much more comfortable in it. It feels like getting around and getting through day-to-day life is much less of a faff in this chair than it was in the other chair. I find the curb climbing ability on the Whill C2 really helpful as well. So if there's a dropped curb that's not quite dropped enough, or there's a slight incline to get up, that's not a problem for this chair. I believe it can climb curbs that are up to 5 centimeters high, and while that might not sound like a lot, in day-to-day life that does make a big difference, because there's less having to stop and reroute and dealing with all of those access barriers that come with that. In almost every single way, the Whill C2 feels like the perfect chair for me to have at this stage in my life and for my access needs at this time. There is just, for me, one big problem that I'm needing to solve, and this is quite unique to me and my situation, and it won't be a problem for everybody. But I'm going to talk about this now because, one, I think it's important to document, and two, I'm actively starting this next step of the journey, and I would very much welcome any sort of advice or suggestions on this little bit. So let me tell you about the main struggle I've had, and that struggle is about the portability of this wheelchair. I'm also going to answer some more questions while I explain my situation a bit more. So the first ones were sort of, how easy is it to get in and out of the chair? Does it fit in the boot of a car? How small does it fold down? So basically, the Whill C2 doesn't really fold down. It comes apart into 4 separate pieces, all of which can be lifted individually into a car. And in a standard car, I'm going to use my mum's car as an example because that tends to be the only real time that I am in a car, sometimes with friends, but mostly it's just with my mum. And when I'm on my own or when I'm working, I'm usually relying on public transport or accessible taxis. But in my mum's car, it would come into 4 pieces and we'd get the base and the battery in the boot of the car, and then we'd get the actual seat part of the wheelchair. We'd fold the top bit of that down and then that would go in one of the back seats of the car. So if you've got sort of like a typical 5-seater car, it would fill the boot and one of the seats in the back. That's sort of roughly how much room it would take up. It's very easy to take the wheelchair apart into the different pieces. I do find putting the base back together a little bit tricky sometimes. I think if you have any issues with fatigue or with your hands, you would really benefit from having somebody else to assist you with that. And what we tend to do now is keep the base, instead of separating it into 2 different pieces, we tend to keep the base together and try to get it in like that, because although it's heavier to pick up, that does take away some of the issues that come with putting it back together, and depending on the day, that is sometimes harder than picking it up to start with. I'm not going to go too much into the specific details of the situation other than to say everything that I'm sharing here I have my mum's consent to share, but in a nutshell, both of us have our own access needs, both of us struggle with fatigue and increasingly with issues in our hands as well. And when I am with my mum, there is literally me and my mum. There's nobody else to help us with practical tasks like getting a wheelchair in and out of a car. And the fact of the matter is that we are struggling. The reason I say this is specific to us is because if you have other people to assist you, if you have a non-disabled or a fit and healthy person to assist you, or ideally if you're not having to be the one who's lifting the wheelchair at all, you will be absolutely fine. There are some non-disabled people who can literally lift each piece on their own, or even the base. I've seen somebody lift the entire base of my wheelchair on their own, which I could never. What I'm trying to say is that lifting the wheelchair and putting it into a standard car won't be an issue if you have a non-disabled person to do it or to help you do it. If, however, you have to be involved in this and the other person who is also involved in this also has their own access needs, that becomes more difficult. Now, there are a few different options we've looked at in terms of combating this, and I think this is where Past Pippa will pick up the video now. So we've looked into lots of different solutions that might save us from having to physically lift the chair ourselves. We've looked at portable ramps, but in our experience, the ramps have been just as heavy and difficult to implement as lifting the chair would be, so that doesn't actually make it physically easier to put the ramps down. Lots of people suggest a hoist. A hoist won't work for us, and we also can't change the car. We can't get an adapted car. The other thing I looked at was a floor hoist. There's one that you can get via Careco, and basically you put the chair on it and then you sort of crank it up to the level of the car boot and then you push it out, or as I would have done it, drive it out with the app. However, with the floor hoist, you still have to lift the chair onto the floor hoist, so it still doesn't take away the step of physically lifting the chair, so that doesn't solve any problems either. Now, I'm not totally against hearing any other suggestions that people might have, but as I say, I'm not sharing the full situation and all of the intricacies on here, so I'm fairly confident now, after 18 months of thinking about this, that there's only one real option that I need to consider when it comes to when I need to use mobility aids and I'm travelling in the car with my mum. And I think, and I really, really hate to say this, and I really wish this wasn't the solution, but I think it is. I think I'm going to have to look into getting another mobility aid. I'm going to have to look into getting something that's ultra lightweight and ultra portable, so that I can use that and it won't be of detriment to me and my mum's health. I'm sure I don't have to say that this is really far from ideal. I don't want to have to spend my hard-earned money on another mobility aid, but I think this is going to have to be the way to go. I'm going to have to prioritise something that's lightweight and portable over anything else. Ideally, it would be something that I can lift myself, but I know that that's going to be a big, big ask. And I also know that by opting for the most lightweight and the most portable model, that's going to require a compromise on all of the things that make the Whill C2 so great for me. So things like how it handles off-road, how sturdy it is, how safe I feel. And I'm also starting to come to terms with the fact that it might be a mobility scooter. And again, I've talked and wrote a lot about this in the past, how mobility scooters weren't the best option for me with my arms. However, I will say that I do feel like I've built up some tolerance in that area. So if it has to be a mobility scooter, then that's what it has to be. So I have started putting some feelers out, and I'm kind of tentatively starting this journey to find something that's going to fit the bill for us. The bottom line is I do have this power chair that's served me so well so far in almost every conceivable way. It's the perfect fit for so many things. It's just not the perfect thing for this one fit with this very specific situation that I'm navigating. And I'm also just trying to remember that a lot of disabled people do have to have more than one walking aid. Like, there are different aids for different days, different circumstances, different situations. I suppose it's all about creating a toolkit that's going to best serve you and the way that you live your life and the way that you have to do things. And if this is what it takes to make things work for me and my mum, then that's what we're going to do. But I feel like I should just emphasise again that the situation is unique to us, and that's not necessarily a reflection on the chair as a whole. I do believe that the Whill C2 is a great fit for so many people. I have no regrets about choosing it as the chair for me. I'm very happy with my choices and very happy with how it's served me so far. And even if you are worried about the portability, and even if you feel or you know that you are going to be involved with the taking it apart or the lifting it, I would say don't rule it out until you've tried it for yourself. It's so important to go and have a look and a proper feel and just see how it's going to work for you. I also just thought I'd add a few bonus points to the end of this video that weren't covered by any of the questions that I thought might be helpful to know. One of the big pros of this chair is that the turning circle is absolutely excellent. Even if you're quite new to using a power chair or your spatial awareness isn't quite where you'd like it to be, it does feel very easy to drive the chair. It's quite easy to get around. It feels quite nifty. If, like me, you're an ambulatory wheelchair user, one of the things I find really great about this chair is that you have the app on your phone. It can do a few different things, so you can actually use the app to drive the chair when you're not in it. And the one thing that I really find helpful when I'm out and about is that you can use the app to lock the chair. So if you are getting up and, for example, transferring to a seat, or you're leaving your chair somewhere momentarily while you go somewhere else, you can use your phone to lock the chair, and that means that no passerby can make off with it. I think you'd have to be quite a low person to steal somebody else's wheelchair, but in the world we live in, we just can't rule these things out. So being able to lock the wheelchair using the app on your phone and then unlock it when you're ready to move on, that can be great in terms of peace of mind. This point won't be applicable to everybody, but if you have an energy limiting condition, you will know that you sometimes have to budget certain amounts of energy for unexpected interactions when you're out and about. In my experience, it happens more when I'm in this wheelchair, the Whill C2, because the wheels do look slightly different to other mobility aids that are out there. And a lot of strangers do tend to have curiosity about that, or you do detect them staring a bit more because it's not what they're used to. I personally really like the look of this chair, and I feel quite good and quite confident when I'm using it, but whenever I do go out and about, I do have to be mindful of putting a bit of energy aside for dealing with sort of unwanted social interactions with people, on top of the usual sort of let's interact with the wheelchair user, let's ask invasive questions about their disability or ask them if they passed the driving test yet. You will know all of the usual culprits, but with the Whill C2 you do often get people specifically staring and asking about the wheels as well. So you know, it is what it is, but if you are managing fatigue, just be mindful that you might have to budget a little bit of extra energy for that. I hope this has answered lots of the questions that people have about how I'm getting on with the chair so far and how I'm finding it at this stage. If you do have other questions that I haven't covered here, I am willing to bet that they were covered in the other two videos that I mentioned previously, because it tends to be the same questions that come up a lot, which is totally fine. But just to flag that if you are looking for immediate information, the answers that you're looking for probably are covered in the previous two videos. So whether you're seriously considering whether the Whill C2 is the right chair for you, or you're looking at alternative models, my best advice is to keep doing your research, keep listening to people with lived experience and find out how they're getting on. And honestly, I will shout about them again because I think they're great. Like, organisations like Access Your Life are so brilliant and they have such a wealth of knowledge in their team. So I honestly think there's no harm at all in reaching out and just asking the questions that are on your mind, because the more information you can get, the better. And if you do contact Access Your Life, feel free to tell them that I sent you. Like, honestly, they're the best. They're such a lovely team. Anyway, TLDR is that I'm having a really positive experience with the Whill C2 so far. Long may it continue. And I really hope this video has been helpful no matter where you are in the process. So for now, I'll say thank you so much as always for watching. I really appreciate you being here. You can subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.